It doesn't look much like a ship. But this vessel was built to sail out to the oil and gas reserves of the freezing North Atlantic and drill in waters more than 3 kilometers deep. A floating city on stilts with 120 men and women on board. This super ship, named for Viking explorer Eric the Red, is sailing headlong into the deadliest part of the North Atlantic Ocean, the place where perfect storms are born. 220 kilometers from the shores of Nova Scotia, a gigantic vessel, the deep-water self-propelled oil rig Eric Rowde, is searching for oil and gas on Canada's storm-racked eastern seaboard. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for months at a time. The Eric Rowde is a colossus of the offshore oil patch, the biggest semi-submersible oil drilling vessel in the world. Sitting in its home port of Halifax Harbor, it occupies more than an acre of dock space, and at 122 meters, or 400 feet high, it is taller than the towers of Halifax's Angus L. MacDonald Bridge.
Basically, it's a ship, only it doesn't look like a ship.
This mighty vessel is owned and operated by Ocean Rig, a Norwegian company with operations in Norway, Scotland, Angola, and Canada. It has been specially built and equipped to stay out in the North Atlantic year-round, in temperatures that can reach 50 below zero, in waves that can rise up to its drilling deck.
It has a marine crew, a captain. It's totally self-propelled when it moves from location to location or country to country or ocean to ocean. It does it by itself.
The quickest way out to the rig from Halifax is by helicopter, and the 90-minute flight is only one of the risky things about working at a deep-water drilling site. Everyone on board has spent time in a dunk tank, learning to escape after a crash. Helicopters carry their engines on top of the fuselage. When they drop into the water, they roll over and sink upside down. Passengers have just seconds to release their safety belts, find the exit, and struggle to the surface. The orange survival suits they wear make them easy to spot in the sea and should keep them alive for about 45 minutes in waters of 2 degrees Celsius, which is the average water temperature out here from December to April. Everyone on board works 12 hours on and 12 hours off for 21 straight days. Then they leave the rig for 21 days at home, or on the beach, as the oil workers call it. The people who work on board the Eric Rowde fall into one of 4 groups: the client's engineering team, the ship's crew, the drilling crew, and the food and accommodations providers. But when you're on a giant steel island working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, you become a member of one very tightly knit society.
Some old, some experienced, some young, some eager, but definitely all of them team workers. A lot of Newfoundlanders, they don't get stopped, you know, because of a little bit of snow or a little bit of rain or a little bit of wind, and they don't think about that as being obstacles, you know. That's their everyday, isn't it? And when you ask them about things like that, you know, they think you come from another planet. Because to them, you know, it's natural, you know. Rough weather is natural.
For the North Atlantic, especially in the wintertime, it's the meanest, roughest, toughest place in the world to try to work. I've personally worked in almost every ocean that there is, and the North Atlantic is the worst. The winds and the sea conditions, the ice, the fog, you name it, it's there.
No more proof is needed of the deadly workings of a North Atlantic storm than the fate that befell the 84 men and women aboard another semi-submersible, the Ocean Ranger. Although the rig was the best of its kind at the time, and like the Titanic, considered unsinkable, it was caught in a vicious storm which developed south of Newfoundland and smashed like a giant fist into the Grand Banks. By sunset, winds were up to 90 knots, or 162 kilometers an hour, and wave heights reached more than 30 meters, or 100 feet. Just after 7 p.m. on February 15, 1982, the Ocean Ranger reported that a giant wave had crashed over the rig, smashing a porthole in the ballast control room. With water rushing in and circuits shorted out, the rig began to list.
Mobile radio calling? Yeah. Got an emergency on the Ocean Ranger? Doesn't seem to be coming back for us, so we need every helicopter in the air. We can get out of here, but the only thing I think we're flying now is Ocean Ranger, Jack, are you there? Roger. Can you give us anything else on it right now? We're listing badly, and we need to get the people off the rig, and that's about it.
Supply boats in the area rushed to assist, but could not get close to the lifeboats or the crew members in the water. At 3:38, the rig capsized and sank. There were no survivors. As a consequence of the Ocean Ranger disaster, safety systems and training procedures aboard oil rigs have been greatly improved. And the design and construction of these enormous vessels has given them a better chance to survive any known threat from the North Atlantic.
Design of the Eric Rauda has allowed us to stay on location in 3 100-year storms in a period of 3 weeks. And a 100-year storm is only supposed to happen every 100 years, but we had 3 of them in 3 weeks. That indicates that we had wind speeds in excess of 100 knots and sea conditions above 23 meters. So the rig is designed for that, and it works well.
These images were recorded by a crew member on board the Eric Rauda. The waves are as tall as a 10-story building. And somewhere out there, another wave is growing. A wave that's just a bit too big, a bit more powerful than any wave anyone has ever encountered. Except perhaps the crew of the Ocean Ranger. The Eric Rauda was created to work in the harshest environments the world has to offer. The North Sea between Scotland and Norway, the deep waters of the Flemish Pass off Newfoundland, and the oil and gas fields of the Scotian Slope near Sable Island, graveyard of the North Atlantic. Various agencies have estimated the reserve potential of Canada's East Coast gas fields at 78 trillion cubic feet. Enough to power all of New York State for the next 66 years. Only about 200 wells have been drilled here, in comparison to the Gulf of Mexico, where tens of thousands of holes have been sunk. The Eric Raud is floating over a spot on the ocean floor, which was pinpointed months before as a possible well site by geologists working for the oil and gas exploration company Encana, a company which holds leases to 8.7 million acres of ocean bottom.
I represent Encana Corporation. I am the client representative that Ocean Rig works for. Essentially, the Eric Raud is rented to me on a daily basis to go and drill Encana's prospect to find the oil and gas.
Taking this rent-a-rig out for a spin costs about $250,000 a day. In all, the owners of the Eric Raud expect to earn about $53 million from current bookings. Cost to build the rig, nearly $500 million.
The client is mainly occupied with the well and the drilling. I am occupied with the rig and everything that goes on the rig. That's why they hired us, is to make the well and to obviously make it the way they want it to be made and drill it the way they want it to be drilled. If we're not doing the work that we are supposed to do, we will not get paid.
Because the Eric Raud is designed to work in extremely deep water, it cannot be anchored on the sea bottom. Anchor chains would snap at these depths. So the precise positioning of the rig as it floats over the drill site is made possible by a combination of satellite navigation feeds and sensors installed on the ocean floor by ProDive Oceaneering.
What we have on deck right now is actually two components. There is the ROV cage and the ROV vehicle itself, which is inside the cage.
With its articulated arms, metal claws, and twin cameras for eyes, the ROV can do the dangerous underwater jobs that divers used to do.
When we get down to our working depth, we'll typically stop the cage at about 20 meters off bottom. Then we will fly the ROV out of the cage to the work site.
Wind and wave, current and ocean swell. With its dynamic positioning system operating, the rig will keep its drill pipe vertical to the wellhead within a very few meters. With the well site located and marked, the drilling begins. Hollow steel pipe with a drill bit on the end is pieced together and lowered to the ocean floor. Each section is 90 feet long and weighs about a ton. A mud-like liquid is forced under high pressure down through the pipe to lubricate and cool the drill bit while drilling the first two sections of hole. Once the initial probe has proven to be in the right place, a larger casing is sent down and set in cement. This will provide a foundation for a device called a blowout preventer, BOP for short. It's a series of valves and sealing devices that clamp around the pipe sticking up from the wellhead. The marine riser, a large diameter casing, is put in place over the drill pipe, reaching down from the rig to the wellhead. This casing is held at the rig by a telescoping harness, which can move up and down with the ocean swells. Now the mud with the cuttings from the bit can be returned to the surface, where it's examined, cleaned, and returned down the pipe to the drill bit in a never-ending stream. The pressure at the wellhead is carefully monitored because a catastrophic failure of the safety systems on the bottom could generate a dangerous surge of hydrocarbons up the drill pipe. 1 barrel of gas under pressure at 10,000 feet rapidly expands to become 5,000 barrels of highly explosive gas by the time it reaches the surface. It's a possibility the ship's captain has to take very seriously.
My responsibility on the rig is total. It's the whole rig. I'm responsible for everything on board. Everything that goes well, of course, and everything that goes bad.
If something does go badly, the oil rig can disconnect from the wellhead and begin to move away in just 32 seconds. The supply ship, which is usually alongside, will also move away automatically because it's tied by computer to the Eric Raud's emergency systems. But 32 seconds can feel like an eternity when 5,000 barrels of explosives are coming at you from below. The biggest oil drilling vessel the world has ever seen can sail away from harsh weather at speeds of 7 knots, or 12 kilometers an hour, and travel under its own power to any offshore oil location. But its first voyage was a piggyback ride from China. It was at the Dalian shipyards in October 1998, where the ship's hulls, the giant pontoons, and the enormous steel deck supports, 38 meters or 125 feet high, were welded into place. When this stage of construction was completed, the most powerful heavy lift vessel in the world lowered itself into the ocean beneath the mammoth creation and raised it from the waters of the South China Sea, transporting it across the Indian Ocean, around the Cape of Good Hope, and across the South Atlantic to Pascagoula, Mississippi, in the United States. A voyage of more than 28,000 kilometers, which took 45 days to complete. At the shipyards in Mississippi, the decks and superstructure were fabricated and installed. But before the Eric Raud could sail, she was destined for another assisted voyage, brought about by the bankruptcy of her American builder. This time, the route was due north to Canada and the Irving shipyards in Halifax, a journey of 13 days. A crew of 6 were on board to assist with the voyage and get in a little fishing. Eric Raud arrived in Halifax Harbor in October 2001, pulled by the biggest tugboat in existence, the powerful Russian salvage tug Fulti Krylov, with its 25,000 horsepower engine. In the months to come, the Eric Raud would acquire diesel engines with more than twice that amount of power and become the largest and most powerful self-propelled ship of its kind ever built. The job given to the Irving yard was to winterize the vessel and install all the control systems, electronics, powerful thrusters, and 400 kilometers of electrical cable to link everything to the control stations. There were also kitchens and cabins and laundry rooms to equip. A massive task that had to be completed as quickly as possible so the Eric Raud could join the other oil rigs in the hunt for offshore hydrocarbons. The machine parked next to the Eric Raud is called a jack-up rig. It's not a ship. It's a barge with legs which can be lowered to the ocean floor. It can operate to depths of about 100 meters. There are also semi-submersible rigs with no propulsive power. These are limited to water depths where they can anchor over the drilling site and partially submerge to make them more stable. Drill ships are like conventional vessels, and they can travel quickly between drilling locations and carry large stocks of supplies, but they are not as stable as semi-submersibles. To deal with this motion in the ocean and to propel itself to any offshore drilling location on the planet, the Eric Raud will rely on these Rolls-Royce thrusters, the biggest ever built, which have been shipped over from England and are making their way across Halifax Harbor. The thrusters will perform three hugely important functions. They will push the ship through the water. They will act as rudders to steer her. And they will connect to a computer-operated positioning system to hold the Eric Raud rock steady over any oil or gas well under any weather conditions. Installing the thrusters won't be easy. They have to be attached to the bottom of the pontoon hulls and guided into place by a team of highly skilled divers working in the bone-chilling water in very murky and very dangerous conditions.
Roger that, blue cable.
Eric Raud, the world's largest semi-submersible oil drilling rig, is about to receive 6 of the biggest thrusters ever built. Attaching them to the bottom of the pontoon hulls, 12 meters or 40 feet beneath the surface, won't be easy. But a remarkable plan of action has been devised. The Eric Raud will be lifted 12 meters into the air. To do this, a special semi-submersible heavy lift barge is towed into position. It will submerge to a level just under the huge cross members which connect the twin pontoons of the Eric Raud. Welders have created 4 curved sections on the deck of the barge. These are the precise shape of the cross members and will work like a gigantic cupped hand to lift the Eric Raud. Very carefully, the submerged barge is eased under the cross members. The exact location of the lifting sections has been marked out by the rig's engineering and survey team. This will be a very critical balancing act, as 53,000 tons are elevated a distance of 4 meters. The barge, which has taken on more than 1 million liters of seawater to sink it under the Eric Raud, begins to pump its ballast. And very carefully rises up in exactly the right spot. A few more millimeters, and these 2 giant vessels will be locked together. If the calculations are correct, everything will be in perfect balance. If they're out even a little bit, there could be a mighty big splash. Now, the hatches on the bottom of the pontoon hulls can be opened without risk of it sinking down to the harbor floor. In the space of a few hours, the Eric Raud has been lifted up from the surface and is being held like a monstrous baby in its bathwater. exact positions on the bottom of Halifax Harbor have been identified, 50 feet beneath the surface. This is where the thrusters will be placed. To make sure they don't disappear into the silt-covered bottom, a compactor is brought in. Compactor is a fancy name for a big steel box filled with anchor chain. Weighing about 50 tons, the compactor will compress the materials on the harbor bottom to create a solid platform. The thrusters, with guidelines attached to flotation buoys, are lowered into the water. The buoys will keep the guidelines from tangling up or being trapped underneath the thruster when it's sitting on the harbor bottom. The giant vessel resting on the heavy lift barge is swung out to pick up the first of the thrusters.
What's your location, Steve?
Southeast corner.
Southeast. Roger.
Divers guide the lines up into the hatches and above the flooded section of the pontoon. 53,000 tons of ship is being balanced overhead, and down below in the near darkness, another 10 tons is on its way up.
If you just want to give us another look up inside the dome, please.
Roger. Starting from the forward labeled side.
Okay, we just need a quick look around the area. It's not a full inspection on the inside. We're more concerned with the face for O-ring sealing.
Roger that.
Yeah, we can see there's no debris or any obstructions in the area.
Roger, no problem.
Take your hand and just wipe in the area of the O-ring around the face, just to remove any grit if there is any grit in the O-ring area.
When the lines are brought to the surface inside the hulls, they are attached to the winches, which raise the thruster up from the harbor bottom.
Okay, Steve, probably going to get you back to the boat there whenever you're ready. And just let me know when you release the bottom or whatever. And you got to do a short chamber run, 6 minutes.
This process will be repeated until all 6 thrusters are bolted into position. The thrusters are controlled from the bridge by the captain or by a direct positioning system, a computer program that activates the thrusters automatically.
This is one of the images, you know, that we can bring up on the DP screen. It's indicating the 6 thrusters, 1, 2, 3 on the port side, 1, 2, 3 on the starboard side. But we can also drive the thrusters simultaneously with this joystick. And like a normal ship, we also have what we call self-steering or automatic pilot. So we can also go along with all the thrusters, for instance, going ahead like this, and then we can go into automatic pilot with this little wheel here. So we got numerous possibilities of driving the rig, but that's the idea, of course.
Almost exactly 1 year after she was towed into Halifax Harbor, the Eric Rowde is capable of sailing under her own power. But first, the anchors must be hauled up from the deep silt of the harbor bottom. A normal ship would just sail over its bow anchor and release it. But Eric Rowde is held at each corner by 4 22-ton anchors. The 1,000 meters of chain coming aboard weighs over 150 tons. A supply ship has the job of lifting the anchor as the enormous chain is pulled aboard. Each link is half a meter long and weighs more than 158 kilograms, or 350 pounds. The Bruce anchor weighs in at 8 metric tons. This anchor has a unique design and is capable of holding 4 times more than a traditional anchor of equal size. With night closing in on the evening of November 26, 2002, the Eric Raud carefully makes her way out towards the harbor mouth and the waters that rage above the oil fields of Atlantic Canada. Waters that have already claimed hundreds of lives.
At nighttime, you know, we are probably at different moods than what we are in the day. We change, you know. At nighttime, you know, we get more relaxed. We want less light, for instance. You know, we don't move around as fast as what we do during the daytime, and so on. Oh, Frank. How are you doing?
Oh, very good.
There are no breaks from drilling unless something actually does break. And on the bridge, the navigation and power systems are constantly monitored. With the pontoon hulls submerged to drilling depth, the thrusters and their electric motors are now more than 29 meters or 96 feet below the surface. The 6 engines that power them are in 4 separate rooms on the number 2 deck. A loss of power on this ship not only means a loss of propulsion and steering, it can also lead to a nasty disconnect from the wellhead. Making sure that can't happen is the responsibility of a highly trained crew, which includes 2 engine room operators and 2 motormen. On the electrical side, there is an electrical supervisor, 3 electrical technicians, and 2 electricians. Their work is supervised from the main control room by a chief engineer.
This is the main control console. From here you can control pretty much all the machinery in our spaces. For example, if we needed to start another engine here, I could just come over to C2 engine here and select the engine and start it from here. And there it goes there. As soon as the engine's up to full run speed and everything's looking good, we can go ahead and connect it to the bus. We have 6 Wärtsilä diesel engines, each producing about 10,200 horsepower, just over 7 megawatts of electricity. You could probably run a small city with that much electricity. On a normal day, we'll burn probably about 25,000 liters of diesel. That can go anywhere as high as maybe 85,000 on a real stormy day. Put that in layman's terms, let's say you were driving a Volkswagen diesel for say, you could probably get yourself somewhere in the vicinity of about 500,000 kilometers.
On the bridge here, we run the dynamic positioning system. The Eric Raud uses thrusters to maintain position over the well, so we don't use anchors or any other form. The only connection we have to the seafloor is the drill string and riser.
The dynamic positioning system uses inputs from navigation satellites, along with its own measurements of wind, waves, and current, to keep the vessel within 5 meters of its desired position.
The dynamic positioning system is essential to drilling. This is the only system we have to hold us in position over the wellhead while we're drilling. So if we can't maintain position, we can't drill.
All the ship's functions can be controlled from the bridge. But since there is a real possibility that the bridge may be blown up by exploding gases from the drill pipe or swept away by the sea, all the flotation, navigation, and engine controls are duplicated in a backup control room on the other side of the main deck.
We're in the backup control room now, and this is an area that we would use in an emergency situation should there have been a fire or some kind of a disaster that has wiped out the central control room.
Command of the entire ship's operation can be maintained with this control panel, and the captain, the drill operator, the oil company manager, and the chief engineer would work from here to control any emergency. And the first person to spot an emergency in the well would likely be the tower pusher. The driller, or tower pusher as he's known on the rig, is in charge of the drilling process. He works from a rotating cyber chair with touchscreen television monitors and a joystick. The driller operates with the most advanced technologies ever developed, controlling the pipe assembly and monitoring the forces in the well itself. Yet this highly sophisticated operation would quickly grind to a halt if it ran out of mud. On a drill rig, mud, which is actually a special mixture of oil, chemicals, and lubricants, is forced down the center of the drill pipe under immense pressure to help rotate and lubricate the drill as it grinds through the ocean floor. The mud is then returned to the surface, carrying with it the shale from the drilling operation. This material is carefully examined by the Encana engineering team, because somewhere in this mess, there might be a message from $1 billion hydrocarbon strike.
The Arc route is of the latest technology. It is processed, evaluated, measured before anything is discharged.
And in this case, we have about 700 cubic meters of mud at surface. And we have another few hundred cubic meters of mud down in our column legs as reserve mud.
We'll take it from our mud pits, and we'll pump it down whole with our 3 mud pumps. So they run about 2,200 horsepower apiece. Pump it down anywhere between 1,500 to 5,000 psi.
Okay, the drill floor is really basically the heart of the operation. This operation here is basically where all the drill pipe and all the tubulars are stored. We take them out of the rocks, which are just behind us here. We pick them up with a hydro rocker, make up 2 joints of pipe or 3 joints of pipe, run it in the hole, and just continue the drilling process.
The rig operates in accordance with zero tolerance for pollution. This means anything on the rig stays on the rig.
We'll recycle the mud, which is like, we'll just keep on using it over and over again, which is all, environmentally friendly, of course.
If something does fall from the ship, if tools or machinery are ripped off the deck by hurricane-force winds and waves, the ROV will make a trip to the ocean bottom and attempt a recovery mission. But more often than not, the little submarine is sent below when there's big trouble brewing. On board the Eric Raud, the lives of 120 people sometimes hang by a thread, the metal thread that connects the ship to a remotely operated vehicle, or ROV. The ROV is making a visual inspection of the undersea wellhead, nearly 2 kilometers down on the ocean floor, a journey that took almost an hour to complete. The operator, or pilot, controls his craft from a workstation that looks more like a PlayStation, using a joystick to control speed, steering, and video camera eyes. Fortunately, the ROV's twin video cameras send up signals that everything at the blowout preventer looks normal. No sign of leaks, no damage from deep water currents. The drill can continue its endless spinning, and life can return to what passes for normal on this immense steel island in the North Atlantic.
The Eric Raud is like an island, as any other rig that's out there that's working offshore. It's like an island, and it has a family group of people that are there together, and they spend half of their life on the rig. They work generally out here 21 days on, 21 days off. They a very close-knit community when they're at work. Has to be that way. There's lots of other rigs out there that can work in deep water. There's rigs out there that can work in a harsh environment. The Eric Raud is built to work in both the harshest environment and water depth up to 10,000 feet, 3,000 meters. And has the capability to stay on location even in a 100-year storm.
I'm very proud of this ship. I was participating in building it all the way from the start, and I found it a major achievement, and I think it's paid off. She's done exactly what we expected her to do. She can take bad weather, she can drill in bad weather, and no, she's everything we hoped she would be.
Compared to the reserves of the Middle East, the East Coast oil and gas fields are still only a very tiny drop in a very big bucket. Even so, it still takes a giant among oil drilling vessels to explore for the world's best-kept secrets, the oil reserves beneath the deep ocean floor. But if any explorer can find them and survive the storms that guard them, it'll probably be this ship, named for the Viking who more than 1,000 years ago first set foot on the shores of Greenland, Eric the Red.